Hello friends, and welcome to a brand new camera comparison between the Samsung Galaxy S23 FE against the S21 FE. Right now we are recording at 4K at 30 frames per second. Tell me in the comment section below which one do you think has better colors and which one has a better audio.
As always, let's begin with some samples taken with their front cameras. In the first case, we can quickly see that the S23 FE performs notably better than the older S21 FE. On the newer phone, my face appears sharper and my skin color is captured accurately, whereas in the S21 FE image, the details are not as polished. We see consistent outcomes in the next sample as well, where the S23 FE effectively retains the details of my hair and face, while the S21 FE still falls short. Additionally, the newer Fan Edition demonstrates a much improved dynamic range. Now, let's shift our focus to their main cameras, but before we proceed, I'd like to make it clear that all the daylight pictures are taken in auto mode with the scene optimizer enabled. Unlike the front cameras, the distinction doesn't appear to be as significant when we look at their primary cameras. The S23 FE appears to capture more details, but in terms of colors and dynamic range, the S21 FE is also performing quite well. In certain instances, such as this one, I couldn't identify any differences between the devices. Both the S21 and the S23 are delivering impressive pictures with superb colors and dynamic range. On the contrary, in more challenging scenarios, I could detect that the S23 FE is sharper, and its representation of the sky is superior when compared to the older FE model. For example, when we crop in, we can see that the S23 FE is much sharper and all the leaves are mostly visible, while on the S21 FE they are a mess. In terms of their main cameras, my opinion would be that the S23 FE performs better in specific scenarios, but for the majority of cases, the S21 FE is nearly on par. The most notable distinction, in my view, lies in the level of detail. This is due to the S23 FE sporting an improved sensor, setting it apart from its predecessor. Both phones are also equipped with ultra-wide cameras, and similar to earlier, they display more or less the same performance. In this specific case, the dynamic range is identical. In different scenarios, like this one, I noted that the S23 captures more details and features warmer, more visually appealing colors. I'm not implying that the S21 is bad, but the S23 does have a slightly improved quality. The newer FE model shines when confronted with more challenging situations. In this particular sample, the trees are clearer on the S23, and even the sunlight is better managed, unlike the more distracting light on the S21 FE. Surprisingly, there were cases where the older S21 FE managed to capture pictures with greater vibrancy, as seen here. The S23 remains sharper, but the S21 showcases more vividness, and personally, I find it preferable for that reason. The S23 FE does a better job by highlighting out darker areas, making them more visible compared to the S21 FE. While the difference isn't substantial, it's certainly worth noting. Apart from the main and ultra-wide cameras, these phones are also equipped with telephoto sensors offering 3x optical zoom. As with most previous instances, their colors are similar, if not identical. The S21 FE occasionally generates slightly warmer colors, but overall, I didn't discover any significant variations in terms of colors within this category. However, I did notice that the S23 FE performs significantly better in terms of details, as its pictures are notably sharper when compared to the S21 FE. Although the S23's images may be slightly over-sharpened, I personally prefer them over the softer images of the older model. The S23 FE represents a significant improvement over the S21 FE in portraits. In this example, my face and my dress lack focus on the old FE model, while the S23 FE shines in this regard, delivering much better results. When we crop in, we can see that they aren't the best with skin colors, but my face is sharp only on the new FE. When it comes to edge detection, they seem to be more or less similar. When recording with their main cameras, it is clearly noticeable that the S23 FE is sharper, the dynamic range is better and it is also displaying better colors. The S21 FE, on the other hand, keeps a good fight only with stabilization since it matches the S23. With their ultra-wide cameras, once again the S23 FE seems to be sharper, but this time I actually prefer how the sky looks on the S21 FE. In terms of stabilization, just like earlier, both are amazing. Now, let's talk about low light. For all the pictures from here on, I used night mode. In scenes with lots of lights, both phones took really good pictures and kept most of the details on the face. I was actually surprised by how well the S21 FE did, especially since it didn't perform as well in daylight. In tougher situations, both phones show a decrease in picture quality. However, from what I observed, the S23 FE appears to handle it slightly better. My face isn't as clear anymore, and even my hair looks messy, especially in the case of the S21 FE. With their main cameras with night mode enabled, both seem to be doing an incredible job here. The images are sharp, and the lighting is expertly managed. In this specific instance, I couldn't identify any differences at all. In the next sample, the S23 FE performs slightly better by providing a picture with more details. However, there's noticeable lens flare on both devices, but this isn't a major concern since the lights were quite distracting even in real life. When the lights aren't as intense, both phones produce pleasing outcomes. The S23 FE appears a tad brighter, especially in terms of the greenery, yet the S21 FE is also performing well. I noticed that the new Fan Edition performs better in scenes with a variety of colors in the frame. For example, in this specific case, the S23 FE captures a high level of detail, whereas the S21 FE lacks sharpness in different parts of the picture. Similar to their primary cameras, even when using their ultra-wide cameras, the results are quite close. The S23 FE slightly edges ahead, but overall, they don't appear to have significant differences. In this particular sample, the lights from the stores are noticeably sharper and better controlled on the newer S23 FE, whereas they appear a bit washed out on the S21 FE. These are the kinds of distinctions you can await, but in reality, they aren't of significant importance. Even the amount of light flare seems quite comparable. Overall, when it comes to their ultra-wide cameras, there aren't any significant differences. While the S23 FE is slightly sharper, Samsung's processing appears to be consistent across both models, and even the older S21 FE is performing well enough. At 3x zoom, there are noticeable enhancements in the S23 FE. If you look closely, you can see that the S23's picture is extremely sharp, while the S21 FE's image is actually a crop from the main camera, which is why it appears blurry. Even when the S21 FE uses its telephoto camera, it doesn't achieve the same level of sharpness as the S23 FE. This improvement in details is one of the standout upgrades of the S23 FE. When capturing nighttime portraits, similar to daylight, the S23 FE stands out as superior. On the S21 FE, my face and even my dress lack focus, which is strange considering everything appeared fine in the viewfinder. When we crop in, it's obvious that the S23 FE is significantly outperforming the S21 FE. While the S23 isn't flawless, it certainly leaps and bounds ahead of the S21 in comparison. Which one is your preferred choice? For me, it's the S23 FE, but to be honest, I was surprised by how well the S21 FE performed. The S23 was notably superior with its front camera, zoom capabilities, and even for portrait shots. Thank you for watching, and if you want more content like this, please think about subscribing to my channel.